Story 1. I would build a castle, a legitimate castle. I would include hidden passageways, a literal dungeon, and a secret room in one tower specifically for tabletop role-playing games. The dungeon is for security reasons. Story 2. I just want a large area of wild land full of native plants and a respectable cottage located in the middle of it. Story 3. A couple of cars, a nice house but not too massive, and lots of travel. I have always told myself that I would see as much of the world as possible before my time expires. Story 4. I would like to open a store that sells one item only, an ordinary pencil for $10,000, just to see if anyone would buy it. Story 5. I would do what other billionaires do. I would use my money and power to influence others to advance my personal agenda. Story 6. How many billions? It would be fun to buy an entire state like Oklahoma or somewhere inexpensive and just close it. Everyone out, we are closed. No entry. Story 7. Animal shelters within a couple of 100 miles of me would be extremely well funded, and my wife and I would own a large farm with herds of rescued dogs running around. Story 8. I would buy a bunch of United States dollar, gold, and silver coins, fill mini treasure chests with about $100,000, and bury them in sand pits at playgrounds for children to find buried treasure. The look on the parents' faces when they realize their child found a college fund would be worth it. Story 9. I set up trusts for grants and scholarship programs for trade schools, union apprentices, and some smaller ones for university academics. Story 10. Probably just put statues of random people. The confusion when they see themselves as statues might be funny. Story 11. I would open a video rental store stocked with video home system tapes. I would park my Lamborghini out front in a spot reserved for the owner. I would wait and listen to the gossip about how a man who only runs a shop selling outdated physical media could possibly afford such a luxurious means of transportation. Other than that, I would live humbly and enjoy the quiet life. Story 12. Buy a nice place in Tofino. Get a classic Ford GT40. Set up my friends and family. Create an education fund for the children. Make many anonymous $1 million charity donations over the years, but just want to be a rich, benevolent recluse in a rainforest lair. Story 13. Honestly, I would probably just do nothing like I do now, but all the time and in beautiful homes and hotels when I travel. Bills taken care of, so no working. I am not an ambitious person, and to be honest, I am pretty selfish. Story 14. You did not specify how many billions, so I am assuming 5 billion. Hire Mick Gordon to compose a fan original soundtrack for Doom: The Dark Ages. He gets 5 years and a budget capped at $500 million. He can do whatever he wants with it as long as it is overall similar to his usual Argent metal style from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Any remaining budget after he finishes gets donated to a charity of his choosing. If he wants to create more Doom-like music with the rest, that is fine too. Buy a remote island in the northern regions of the world, preferably between 45 and 60 degrees longitude. Construct a grand and imposing evil wizard tower on it, reminiscent of high fantasy where the necromancer big bad evil guy from a Dungeons & Dragons campaign would live. The tower will be my primary residence. There will also be a large vault-like space underground to hide $1 billion worth of precious metals. Spend $1 billion promoting nuclear power. Try to push this as much as possible. I want nuclear power to take off significantly. Advertisements will focus on safety and encourage people to contact their representatives to support it. The campaign will highlight the benefits and promote a patriotism angle by emphasizing ending dependence on foreign fuels. Start a foundation to create a union for independent creatives, including artists, musicians, and writers, with the purpose of pushing for action against artificial intelligence companies and protecting creatives from generative artificial intelligence. The foundation will advocate for artificial intelligence labeling requirements, banning artificial intelligence-generated content from creative spaces, and similar measures. The starting budget is $1 billion, and they will accept donations. Hire scientists with expertise in genetic engineering to create dragons. A dragon is defined as a reptilian creature with wings capable of flying, with fire breathing as optional. If successful, I will have one as a pet. The budget for this project is $1 billion. The remaining money will support me and possibly my dragons for life. It goes without saying that I will dress as an evil wizard almost constantly. Story 15. Personal chef, personal trainer. The only way I would ever manage to maintain a better shape than the pear shape I currently have. In-house practitioners to keep me as healthy as possible so I can enjoy the money. Set up travel funds to continue the travels I have started. Set up secure housing for myself, family, and friends. Create foundations and charities to help homeless youth and other groups in society that resonate with me, such as the arts or entrepreneurial endeavors. Purchase areas of the country to preserve the land and protect natural resources. Invest in or create new businesses that could compete with companies like Amazon or Temu to keep them competitive in a way that benefits the customer. How many billions are we talking? Story 16. Move out. Get my own place. Adopt a few cats. Decorate the place. Have a nice garden. Buy some video games. Just relax, be happy, and live life. Nothing fancy or extravagant. Just living. Story 17. I would use the money for good and dedicate my whole life to trying to be with a companion in every single country. Story 18. I would randomly give large amounts of money to people who are kind, in need, or helpful. I would even program an artificial intelligence to read through different Facebook and Reddit posts, and if I find that it is genuine, I would make life-altering donations. Need money for medical purposes? Done. Need to fix a car because you need it for work? Look outside and see a new Prius. Need a break because you are hungry and homeless? Check your Venmo balance. Story 19. I would buy old schools and malls. I would repurpose them as senior centers and homeless shelters. Malls could still have their food courts, partnering with low-security prisons or people on parole to provide them with a place to work for a living wage. A big box store could be used as medical centers so people do not have to travel far for primary care. A drive-in theater could be created at another big box store, while others can be converted into larger apartment areas. Smaller shops could be used for smaller apartments. Schools could follow a similar idea. Classrooms could be turned into apartments. They have libraries, a gym for exercise, and a cafeteria for eating. Fruits and vegetables could be grown on school grounds for self-sustainability. The elderly should be taken care of, the homeless should have a safe place to sleep at night, and people getting out of prison need better options for employment and access to actual rehabilitation, not imprisonment. Story 20. Honestly, I would fund my own animation studio and create my dream series. It is called Hellfire, and it is a science fiction racing story inspired by Speed Racer, Death Race, Formula One, and many other influences. The story is about speed, love, addiction, dreams, and cars that go so fast they stick to walls because that is cool. Story 21. I would obsess over surpassing other billionaires. I would make donations to politicians in exchange for favorable regulation. I would dodge taxes. I would live insulated by privilege and get others to do dirty work for me. I would pay aides to do various tasks and pretend that all my achievements were due to grit and talent. I would go to the World Economic Forum in my private jet and give emotional speeches about how I want to use my wealth for good. I would lecture homeless people in soup kitchens that I had it harder than them, but I am self-made. I would be invited onto talk shows and pretend to be an expert on subjects outside my field, confusing confidence with competence. I would entice celebrities to come to my parties to convince myself that I am important. I would give interviews to magazines pretending I am relatable. I would argue with self-interest against taxation and regulation because this would hurt entrepreneurship. I would hide all the privileges in my life that led to opportunities and social mobility. I would make wasteful investments and pretend my money came from sound financial decisions. Story 22. Ever look off the highway and just think, I wonder what is that way? Or maybe you go camping in the woods and wonder what lies beyond that ridge or the next one. I would pay people to just support me wandering around. Run out of food or water. Airdrop or it is hiked in for me. I will just wander for a long while. Story 23. Do everything in my power to change our corrupt system and genuinely help people with my immense wealth. Story 24. I would commission the construction of my own personal plane modeled after the bus from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., obtain a pilot's license, and secure a place to store it. I would also buy myself a couple of nice cars, such as a Mustang, Camaro, or maybe a Ferrari. I would get a modest but nice house. I would then set my family and friends up with large lump sum payments into their pensions. Because I would notice the dent in my account, I would put the rest into my pension and work for a few years flying the bus as a party plane business. Story 25. I think about this all the time. I would build a giant concert city on more than 20,000 acres somewhere like Texas or Colorado. I would prefer Pennsylvania, Maryland, or Virginia, but there are no large tracts of land there. I mean, a football stadium, a hockey rink, a 10,000-seat arena, a 5,000-seat arena, a 3,000-room hotel, a 1,000-room hotel, and maybe more. I would have 50 hotels with varying costs and features. I would build condos, apartments, houses, and then a giant neighborhood for artists and crew only. All the roads, paths, elevations, and water runoff needed would be included. Giant concert fields for a Bonnaroo or Coachella setup. Tons of sports fields, tracks, golf, mini-golf, and more. A downtown area to rival New Orleans for food and drink. It would be largely lawless, except the police would have the ability to immediately quash any problems with brute force. None of this leniency on crime. All recreational activities would be welcome and encouraged. Then bands could just set up for a week, a month, or however long they felt like. Everything would be very affordable, just cover operating costs. No sales tax, although the state might have some influence there. No profits needed, no politics, but 100% my way. It would be epic, but I would not have enough time to really enjoy it playing out to its full potential. I would have to be about 25 years old for that. I would also include airports and easy in and out roads to expressways for very easy travel. Story 26. Absolutely not. I would slowly disappear from non-essential people in my life and live comfortably and modestly for the rest of my life. House, car, food, vacations once a year to my private island on my mega yacht. Whatever my children need for school. Maybe some golf on the weekend. The bare minimum. Story 27. Travel visiting every continent and as many countries as possible. And doing as many adventurous activities as I can. Story 28. Buy and do what I want, then put the rest in the bank. I would also build ecological parks, plant many trees, build schools, and provide for those in need anonymously. Story 29. I would reserve enough money for myself and my loved ones to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Then I would use the remaining money to 1. Help those in need. Lobby politicians to vote properly on social programs that encourage education, health, acceptance, and art. Find ways to bring about lawsuits against other billionaires to drain their funds and cause extra stress upon them. Story 30. I probably would not. I would like to think I would buy a decent-sized house and fill it with things to keep me busy with hobbies. Donate a large amount to animal and children's charities. But who knows how that kind of money would change me? No billionaires hiding here want to run that experiment by any chance? Story 31. Everyone is commenting on how they are going to end poverty with billions of dollars. This is a drop in the bucket considering the cost of everything. You might end poverty in your province or state. Good luck funding entire countries. Story 32. I would go away to my own secluded piece of paradise in the mountains, away from it all. I would travel the world. Part of me wants to do some good, but part of me does not want to waste it on selfish people. Story 33. World Tour. Adult entertainers, dancers, food, a state-of-the-art research facility, hospitals, social work. Story 34. Fund some humanity-advancing technology or medical research. Invest in creative pursuits such as music and game development. Purchase other desired items within reason, like toys. I have no interest in a mega yacht or jumbo jet. Buy and maintain a reasonably priced mansion on a decent piece of land and live relatively in the background. Maybe keep some farm animals. Story 35. I would give most of it away. I would pay medical bills for complete strangers and give houses to the homeless. If I saw a child selling something to raise money for a field trip, I would pay for the whole class to go. My billionaire power fantasy is to help people. Story 36. Build the Resident Evil 1996 mansion, every room, every puzzle. I would try to include everything down to the last-minute detail, though I would probably leave out the traps. I would turn the underground laboratory into a doomsday bunker, complete with the generator and everything. Well, perhaps not everything, you know what I mean. Super secret biogenetics research is a bit out of my forte. Story 37. Buy a good-sized chunk of land in the middle of nowhere and construct an enormous replica of the backrooms. Then I would kidnap random people in their sleep and drop them in the middle. Story 38. If I could keep it secret, I would. That said, most of my friends would be offered well-paying jobs to pursue their passions by a new but legitimate company with a mysterious owner who has a punny name I haven't figured out yet. Most of their passions are in the arts, similar to an old-school Patreon arrangement. I would also support other artists, in an attempt to make supporting artists the cool thing to do if you have extra money. Story 39. I would do everything in my power to take control of every other billionaire I could and find a way to change the United States into something that benefits everyone. I would feel guilty having that much money knowing there are children who cannot eat because their parent cannot work due to illness. I would never let another child go through what I experienced. I would work to ensure we have a progressive government, something we can be proud of today. This is not 1900 anymore. We need to be more progressive and stop letting uneducated wealthy people make the rules. That is difficult because many people imagine themselves becoming billionaires one day, instead of realizing they have nothing in common with that type of wealthy person. When people hear the phrase "eat the rich," they often think of small business owners who have done well for themselves, but that is not the case. It refers to people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Mark Zuckerberg, and the other 88 billionaires in the United States. The population outnumbers them 1,000 to 1, yet many poor people support them because they desperately want to be like them. It is strange. Sorry for the tangent. I just really dislike billionaires. Story 40. I would put it into some safe dividend stocks and live off that. Set up a few similar investments in trust to help pay for housing and food programs so that families can pull themselves out of poverty and enjoy a better life. Story 41. I would hire a team to eliminate all other billionaires, then use the remaining resources to further improve the world for everyone. Story 42. Oh man, I would do some really terrible things. I would go about my day looking for people who seemed like they were having a rough time and write them checks for $50,000. Just because I could. I would set up trusts for public schools in towns so that teachers did not have to pay for their own school supplies. Then I would hire a team to relentlessly confront any administrators who tried to skim from them. Real intense stuff. I would find people who were being mistreated by their elected officials and fly them out to camp in those officials' offices for a week at a time. Obviously, room and food with a stipend so they could take the time off unpaid. You cannot solve all of society's issues with just $1 billion or $2 billion, but you can certainly be a public nuisance. Story 43. 1. I would create a competition show about donating tuition money. I would fund a worldwide corruption tracker database and service that publishes all publicly and legally available data on financial transfers and contracts related to virtually every public figure. This would involve funding hundreds of coders, researchers, and investing in data centers for the sole purpose of exposing every single transaction. This would also include organizations and nonprofits. Story 44. Create a secret team of Batman characters. They do not waste time on petty criminals, nor do they focus on making arrests. Story 45. Go around to lemonade stands and garage sales in poorer neighborhoods and discreetly give hundreds. Also, pay others to do the same. Some not so discreetly post on YouTube. Story 46. Pay taxes. Make other billionaires feel bad for not paying taxes. Buy as much land as possible to preserve as wilderness or parks. Fund schools and hospitals. Start a media company that breaks the 24-hour news cycle and only provides factual news with the sole purpose of destroying false news. Finally, probably become Batman and take out the worst billionaires. Once that is done, travel the world on a boat and go skiing in the winter. Story 47. I will make Nazi salutes on presidential elections day and then never admit it. I would call everyone pedophiles, and I would design absurd cars. Story 48. I would operate out of a rigid airship. I am thinking of something close to twice the size of the Hindenburg. If people are willing to marvel at Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk's magic roller coasters that go up and down in the space of a half hour, they are going to love me pulling up to your favorite city and blotting out the sun with my supermassive dirigible. Story 49. I would calculate how much I need for life, redistribute, and then spend my life university hopping, studying everything under the sun. Story 50. I would bribe the House Republicans and senators to take away Medicare and food stamps from the poor so I can get a tax break. Story 51. I would buy businesses that do not pay a living wage, start paying the employees a living wage, and provide my services to make a minimal but sustainable profit. I would advertise what I am doing to try to put any greedy competitors out of business. I would try to expand into every sector so that competitors have to live with modest profits instead of exploiting society. Story 52. I would build a number of workers' cooperatives and run advertising campaigns explaining the benefits of unionization. Story 53. If I had some small change, I'd buy me a mule, get on that mule and ride like a fool. If I had some greenbacks, I'd buy me a Packard, fill it up with gas and drive that baby backward. If I had $1 million, I'd get me a plane, and everybody in America would think I was insane. But I ain't got $1 million. Fact is, ain't got a dime. So just buy if ing. I have a good time. Langston Hughes. Story 54. I would set my children up with trust funds totaling $500 million split between them, donate $250 million, and keep $250 million for my wife and myself. Story 55. I would build something like a castle or create a tropical island into my own private luxury island. Story 56. Start a free breakfast and lunch program for local public schools. Provide free lunch for all students with no requirements, just to feed hungry children. Story 57. Build a motorsport park that is affordable to use. It should include a circuit track, dirt bike track, kart track, and more. Many people would love to race, but most tracks are very expensive. Story 58. Ia viajar o mundo todo e comprar uma casa em cada lugar que eu gostasse. Também ajudaria minha família e amigos mais próximos. Story 59. Buy plenty of kids' toys for the younger relatives in my family because I want them to have all the toys they could ever want. Maybe get myself a house, but not a massive mansion. Just a small, cozy house for me and my family. Save everything else in case something bad happens, like the roof of the house breaking or if I need to get a lawyer for any reason. Saving most of it is my main plan because you never know what can go wrong and how much you might have to pay for it. Story 60. No person needs $1 billion. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is much greater than many people realize. With $1 billion in liquid cash, you could make serious change in the world. I would live a good life and set aside money to ensure my well-being, and my closest friends would be taken care of as well. I do not have any family, so that is not an issue. The rest would go to charities and efforts to feed and house the homeless. Story 61. With $10 billion, the first order of business is investing 10% of the money into the best, most consistent stocks. Next, I will probably buy my mom her dream house before getting mine. Then, I will use my money to gain high social status and influence some people. Fourth, I will probably invest in my first job, a small frozen yogurt shop local to my hometown. Fifth, I will get my 2 dream cars, Tesla Roadster and Porsche 911 Turbo. After that, I will do everything else I want. Small shopping sprees, a private jet, a private boat, driving lessons for planes, boats, and cars. I also want to put life-size models of DC characters outside my house for no reason, like Batman, Superman, and Martian Manhunter. Then, whatever else I would like to do. Story 62. I would quietly spend time alone and with a few close family members who all know how to stay under the radar. Story 63. Buy politicians and elections. But property makes most people's worst fears come true, then does nothing with the property. Story 64. Publish books with the last few pages missing. Buy front row seats at concerts of artists I do not like and leave them empty. Story 65. Honestly, if I had billions, The first thing I would do is create a secret organization with one of the most skilled groups of assassins to take down every pedophile and molester. I would also create another secret organization for my own agenda to do whatever I want, so they can work for me and generate more money. Additionally, I would create more shelters for homeless people, especially children who have nowhere to go. Since I have billions, I can do much more than that. Story 66. I am a man of simple pleasures. I would have one of those lamb shawarma dishes going in my kitchen 24 hours a day, until the end of time. Story 67. If I had Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos billions, I would buy sports teams and shake up the leagues. I would run the team's operations, make trades, and buy players like it's a video game. It would be so fun. Once I have won the titles I want, I would sell the team for a low price to some barely billionaire group so the team returns to being average. I would be the most unorthodox but best owner in their history. Story 68. Build a genuine huge pyramid. Fill it with loads of credible esoteric information and place my remains inside it after I am dead. Cue confused archaeologists for centuries. Story 69. Random jumping castles. Past midnight, random city, random place. Set up a jumping castle and leave it. I have a longer list of things I would actually achieve. My expertise is the practical application of emerging technology, a field full of people who lack competence. We are a good decade or more behind where we should be for the most basic technologies in real-world use. But you asked about my discretionary spending. Random jumping castles. It is going to be big. Tell your friends. Story 70. Find someone to love me for money and have an empty, meaningless life of never-ending vacations with no responsibilities. Live a life where nothing has value and it is driven only by spur-of-the-moment desires. Story 71. Pay my taxes and fund universal basic income, universal health care, invest a significant amount of money into public schools and social safety nets, and make sure the phrase student lunch debt is eradicated from the planet. Story 72. So much untouched land with a lake. Pay people to maintain trails and keep a good portion of the lakefront clear and clean. A decent-sized cottage-style house filled with memorabilia of my favorite games, shows, and books. A gaming room like streamers have, an armory full of weapons and armor through the ages, a library, a full gym, and a den. A garage full of cars from my favorite shows. Outside, there would be a beautiful garden with statues and a pond surrounded by weeping willows and a swinging bench. Story 73. Honestly, I will just relax and stay off the radar. I will get the cars I want, upgrade them, buy a drag car, take care of some people, take part in it, and invest while it hopefully grows. I will travel the world and also stay home, to be honest. I will have $100 million waiting for my potential daughter. Story 74. Buy an island south of the equator, encourage mass deportations of real bona fide gang members and killers, and set up a battle royale-style contest where only one can win by everyone killing each other. The winner gets their freedom but is instead cycled into another game until there is no one left. Each game consists of 100 participants at a time. Charge a pay-per-view fee of $20. Free for victims' families if they choose to watch. Buy another island and fortify it against all man-made threats with a self-contained home featuring power generators and solar power stations storing electricity in massive batteries, sealed away from anything that can destroy them. Build another facility on the same island to house workers, security, and farmers. Establish a farm with cows for milk production and eventual consumption. Have a large arsenal of guns in every kind and caliber, along with ample ammunition. Now that the fever-pitch dream is over, save some money, set up trusts, and create self-sufficient funds to accrue at high interest. Establish at least one primary partner for daily companionship and a rotation of 4 others for variety. Own a large but manageable home and a few cars, around 3 or 4. Provide trust funds for family members. Story 75. Build a network of durable roads in Africa. Connect every village, town, and city with a water supply, a hospital, a market, and a school. Use materials that can withstand heat and floods. Fund safe, free, and fast public transit for this network. Provide safe, well-lit walkways along the sides. Fund a private, well-armed, well-armored, and well-paid patrol for this road network that is highly resistant to bribery and has authority that supersedes local law enforcement. Story 76. I would find random people who seem really cool, working in service positions and dealing with difficult situations all day, and do something nice for them. It is awful having to be the face of a company and interact with the public because companies want more money for cheap products, customers want better products for less, and employees are caught in the middle earning very little. For example, see the girl at the counter being insulted and treated poorly by other customers. Yet she remains sweet and genuine. I would leave a large tip with a note saying, "The universe rewards kindness," and quietly slip away. Story 77. I would make sure my parents and siblings are taken care of for life. I would give away a lot of money in secret to my community and to anyone I felt was in need. I would own a remote cottage with enough rooms to function and no more, on a piece of land large enough so I don't see another home, with a view of the mountains. I would spend my days writing, walking, reading, doing puzzles, and volunteering in my community when I wasn't traveling. This is truly my dream. Story 78. Tour of the country. Buy a bus and travel around the country, going to all the concerts I can handle while stopping at any place I want to see. Story 79. I would spend a lot of time traveling, but I also keep thinking back to this story. There was a man who discovered a glitch with an automated teller machine that let him withdraw money without a limit as long as he returned to the machine every night. This is a true story. When he had a large amount of money to spend, he found that nothing brought him more joy than making other people's dreams come true. He met a stranger and asked what they wanted to do in life. They said they wanted to go to university abroad but could not afford it. He told them that if they were accepted, he would pay for it, and he kept his promise. It changed that person's entire life. I would like to think I would try to do things like that at first and then become more intentional about helping others as time went on. Story 80. Move to Vermont and buy a cute house in the town next to a good school district to become a teacher. Move my father into the guest apartment of the house. Story 81. I would stumble into parties and gatherings, have casual conversations with some people, then pay for everyone's drinks and food before leaving without saying a word. Story 82. Purchase Nevada, turn it into a sovereign nation, and make it the biggest casino hotspot in the world. I will develop the entire state into one giant casino resort metropolis and generate billions more. Story 83. Truth is, I wouldn't. Could you imagine the good you could do for others with that kind of money? I'm not saying I wouldn't buy the ranch I always wanted and the 1978 Ford truck, but I would still help as many people as I could. Maybe help some elderly who are about to lose their homes due to taxes or can't afford to put food on their tables. We are able to help some now, but with billions, you can help many. Story 84. I would set up a game show where death row inmates compete to win a stay of execution. It would be pay-per-view, so I would actually make more billions. Story 85. Start regenerative agriculture to feed people sustainably. Secure and protect as much natural environment as possible. Build natural health and wellness retreats. Live simply. Story 86. Give some to charities that have extensive expertise in their field. Then yacht, party, and enjoy. Story 87. I have always dreamed of building something. I used to fantasize about building ships and boats. I wanted to build quality housing and communities around my shipyard so my employees would have access to quality living conditions, health care, and schools for their children. This sounds a lot like the old coal barons' shantytowns, but shopping at the company store would be an option, not a forced obligation. Story 88. Bro, I couldn't be a billionaire because I'm already on some dumb stuff. My family are gift givers. We love that, but they always buy regular gifts: hoodies, shirts, coffee mugs. For the kids, just birthday cards with money. I, for one, think outside the box. I've given away so many toasters and cereal dispensers. My sister's boy got a 12-in-1 screwdriver because he's a little troublemaker, and my sister's face was so sad because she knew what was going to happen. He takes everything apart. This year, my dad got a 10-egg boiler for his birthday. My family hates it because they say I just waste money. Now imagine if I had billions. No, I can just imagine. Here. Bro. I got you this solid gold shovel. Story 89. Utilize my private jet to randomly get food from various locations, such as having breakfast in Rome and dinner in Vancouver. To be altruistic, I would leave stacks of $10,000 in local currency randomly around town. Story 90. You have no idea how many struggling artists I would become patrons of. I would set up grants and scholarships for young artists of all kinds, establish schools for creative arts, and generally make the world a more creative place however I could. Story 91. I would buy every billboard in Times Square for one day just to post, "I know what you did." Then I would host an annual $1 million prize game show where contestants have to escape a haunted IKEA. I would buy the rights to a beloved 1990s cartoon and make a reboot where everyone is an adult and depressed. Finally, I would fund an elite team of hackers to install Clippy the paperclip back into every corporate Windows system just to watch the world burn. Story 92. Put aside enough to have a good life and dedicate the rest to helping others. Nothing would be more fulfilling. Story 93. Honestly, I would do as much as possible to give it away in a way that would be usable for the people for as many years into the future as possible. Story 94. I would buy thrifty ice cream and change nothing. Maybe open a few ice cream shops or stands around California. To be honest, I would do the same for Foster's Freeze. Story 95. I would fund every child in the United States to attend private schools for 10 to 15 years. When I stop, everyone will realize that public education is inferior compared to private education. All public education funding will then be redirected to continue this cause because, if they are wise, they will mostly phase out public schools. Story 96. Would love to do what billionaires do, meddle in state and national affairs, but actually fix things. Not a clock in a mountain that tells time for 20 million years. No, I'm buying 500 fire trucks for underfunded towns. I will sponsor an entire municipality that needs new roads, lawns cut, and buildings renovated. Then I will pay a social media company to encourage other wealthy celebrities to match my contributions, creating a race to see who can improve the most. The improvements will be realistic and useful. Probably wouldn't work, but I'm also not going to be a billionaire anytime soon. Story 97. I would help people. Everyone would have solar panels on their roofs. Every community would have gardens, bee farms, and wind power. Nobody would go hungry. I would spend all of it trying to help others. Story 98. I would make the small city I live in absolutely amazing. I would improve and maintain parks. I would hold events. I would lobby for positive change and use the weight and influence my money has to make my tiny little city a wonderful place to live. I used to travel for work. I have lived in different cities on the West Coast and East Coast. I love my small town, and I think it would be rewarding to have a direct influence in watching it grow. Story 99. I don't know until I actually have it, but I've thought about being a producer and hiring a team to make animated shows, buying intellectual property rights to certain things to rectify the damage done to them, making games, and giving second chances to things that didn't really have a chance the first time around, like Panzer Dragoon Saga. I've also thought about building a city, an actual city, and naming streets something like Sugarloaf Lane and Cool Guy Drive. Like I said, I don't really know what I would do, but I'm pretty sure I would want to fund things and have a say in them. Of course, I don't want to make it feel like work all the time, so I probably wouldn't do this kind of thing constantly. But every so often, when I get that itch to do something, those are some of the things on my mind, without any knowledge of how they work or what type of effort it would take for those things to be done. Story 100. Buy an island, buy an army, become my own country. Everyone is friends. The island name is Homie Wasbird, pronounced as Homai Wasboard. Then create my own language. Story 101. Well, I would just buy a better house and car and some other features I want. Then I would live a quiet life and pretend that I am just an average citizen, not holding billions. Story 102. I would become vice president and start a war based on my own fabricated intelligence that a foreign adversary has weapons of mass destruction. Story 103. Depends on how many billions. If it was, say, 10 billion, I would do what Elon said he would then, surprising no one, backed out after what he requested was done. In summary, he said if someone could give him a plan to solve world hunger for 7 billion, he would sell Tesla stock to make it happen. They did, and he didn't. Story 104. I simply would not take unnecessary risks because I do not want to face the consequences. However, perhaps running for president and purchasing the election might be an option. Story 105. I would acquire every available piece of residentially zoned land and build reasonably affordable multi-unit or single-family homes to intentionally impact the housing market in my country. I would refuse to sell any of it to non-citizens, especially not to companies or corporations, even if that meant taking a loss. At the same time, this would create a significant number of jobs in a very short period. Story 106. I would just be making albums all the time, paying all my favorite musicians in the world good money to come and record great music. Story 107. Quickly become a multimillionaire. I would pour money into my city's poor population. Healthcare, food, universal basic income, education, you name it. Make it a case study for the rest of this country and hopefully spark some change. Story 108. I would keep working my normal full-time job so I could continue to not care and not have to worry about getting fired for it. Story 109. God, I would love to fix things. Traveling around to find problems and solve them. Bad infrastructure, poor schools, beach erosion, old hospitals, and similar issues. Unfortunately, the only type of person who eventually accumulates billions of dollars is not the one who enjoys fixing things. Instead, it is the person who takes from everyone else regardless of the cost just to achieve a high score. Story 110. Probably buy a large tract of land somewhere remote and form a self-sustaining frontier. Give people with potential a chance to start fresh and contribute, bringing all my friends and family if they want. Fill it with various activities, self-sustaining power, vegetables, animals, a large pond with trout and salmon, basketball courts, soccer fields, gardens, dining halls, saunas, and wellness areas. Grow my own coffee and have a skilled team of chefs to prepare healthy, high-quality meals from our own produce. Build nuclear fallout shelters in case of emergencies. Also, have helicopters to fly people in and out as they please. And companionship services. Story 111. I would commission an artist to carve a block of marble into a statue of my favorite fictional character. Story 112. If I were a billionaire, I would buy up all the possible stores in my country, then increase the prices in all of them. But I am not a billionaire, so right now I steal cookies from my mom. Story 113. To mess with people, pay individuals to plant small trees that grow into huge trees with invasive root systems that destroy various infrastructure over time. Some types of Australian eucalyptus would work. Other ideas include adding psilocybin to all fast food and coffee nationwide. Airdropping cocaine plant seedlings, marijuana seedlings, and magic mushrooms is also an option. Create a new Olympics where participants can take any drugs they want to break records. Place rocket launchers on the Statue of Liberty's shoulders and possibly give her laser eyes. Develop a show where people nominate someone they dislike at work to fight someone from another company who is also disliked by their peers. Everyone on the Epstein Island list is confined to an actual island. They must have sex with each other once every day until they die, without repeating a partner before the cycle restarts. They must alternate roles. Lubricant, condoms, and Viagra are mandatory. Joe Rogan's voice is played through shopping centers, on the radio, and on hold calls simply because these are some ideas, but I need to get back to work. Story 114. Start a game studio and hire developers at top salaries to create games specifically for me. We would release them for sale, but the games would be designed to match the types I enjoy. Story 115. Eu ia provocar os outros bilionários fazendo algo realmente útil. Eu escolheria uma região próxima a uma mata nativa e faria um projeto fantástico, despoluindo rios da região, ampliando a área verde com reflorestamento e refaunamento. Se houver povos locais, melhor ainda, poderíamos ter uma parceria no projeto. Na cidade mais próxima, faria um projeto arquitetônico totalmente solarpunk e sustentável ao máximo segundo as tecnologias atuais. Então criaria uma universidade no centro disso, para formar um polo tecnológico de ponta com foco em ideias úteis para evitar o colapso ambiental, sem racismo ambiental. Triangularia com uma escola que aceitasse alunos que demonstrassem paixão pela causa junto com suas famílias, e uma mídia focada em divulgação científica. Escola, Universidade e divulgação. Uma bola de neve positiva. Em uma década, a humanidade teria ótimas estratégias para lidar com a crise que está por vir, com soluções sendo amplamente aplicadas, não só em teoria. O triste é que temos cérebros para isso. O que falta é investimento e vontade de criar uma alternativa de futuro que não seja ruim. Story 116. It starts with clean energy solutions and research and development into geothermal energy generation, solar energy generation, and other renewable sources. It ends with me selling electricity at 1,000th of the cost of hydrocarbon energy suppliers to half the planet, ensuring cheap, renewable, sustainable energy and reducing reliance on hydrocarbon energy production. Then I choose a city in Canada and create a utopia of affordable housing, employment opportunities, and addiction treatment. I become an influential figure in the province and advocate for the government to fully fund healthcare and increase taxation on the extremely wealthy, including myself. I push for the retraction of subsidies on oil and gas development and advocate for increased spending on education and infrastructure instead. This is all hypothetical, of course, because somewhere in the first paragraph I have been assassinated, but it is nice to dream. Story 117. I would buy a small walk-up counter-service restaurant that served ice cream, burgers, fries, and similar items for about 1/5 the regular price. However, I would ensure that the staff was extremely rude to customers and took a long time to serve their food, just to observe how many repeat customers we would have. Story 118-1. Buy a medium-sized company. Give notice to all non-technical managers citing a need to revitalize the organizational structure. Watch them spend their last couple of months at the company talking nonsense about change management. Rehire the managers who complained the most about making changes for the sake of making changes. Story 119. I would rent a bigger place, an actual house, not a studio or a cramped apartment. I would buy 2 phones, 2 tablets, and 2 laptops. Do not ask why. I am just obsessed. I would eat out every day without having to think twice about the bills. That is good enough. Story 120. I would live an empty life of women, cars, mushrooms, and cannabis. Travel the globe sampling different flavors of all 4. As a part-time hobby, I would use my capitalist influence to shift one election just so I could feel the dominant power radiate through me. Story 121. Rise to power, start a political dynasty, assimilate or remove anyone who opposes me, dominate the poor, spread my empire. You would all be my subjects, begging for scraps for as long as I live. Either that or I buy a really nice car like a Rolls-Royce. Story 122. I would create a fund for free removal of nautical star tattoos. I might expand it to include those under the tiny Dreamcatcher designs. Story 123. I would keep ordering things for people I do not like, such as 2 tons of watermelons shipped directly to their driveway while they are at work. Story 124. Philanthropy. By the end of my life, I would only have a house and a car to my name. No one should be a billionaire. At that point, the only thing left to do is help people. Story 125. A handful of homes around the world, from mountain locations completely off-grid with a private airstrip to an island in the South Pacific, to high-rise apartments in a few cities in Europe. I move between them depending on mood, weather conditions, and hunting and fishing seasons. It is just myself, family, and a few friends, along with staff to care for the homes and personal assistants. Story 126. I don't know if this counts as messing around, but my billion-dollar fantasy, after finding a nice secluded place to live in, of course, is to find a bunch of old friends and acquaintances, get a hold of their financial information, and pay off any debts completely anonymously. I am not sure how possible that would be, but with $1 billion, surely I can lend a hand without revealing my identity. It would be very satisfying and even kind of funny to know that one day they woke up with a huge weight lifted off their shoulders. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.